We made this.
Hello and welcome to CHUCKYVISION, the podcast about the Chucky TV show and the surrounding franchise right here on the We Made This podcast network. My name's Mark Adams and I am your host for this episode, and with me as always is my co-host Dev Elson. Hello Dev.
Howdy everyone, and hello Mark. Good to be back again.
Oh, it feels like it's only like a few minutes ago since we recorded episode 2. I've had such a crazy busy week and we're really hoping to get this up as quickly as we can. But this is kind of the seat of your pants style of podcasting in the way we currently are with regards to Chucky. We watch the TV show as quickly as we can and then we just find the time that we can both do. But we've both got busy lives, so we're recording much later than we have done in the past. So not even sure when this will go up, but it will be as quick as we can, and I will do my very best to get it up before episode 4 has aired. Yeah, because we're talking about episode 3 today, aren't we?
We are, and on a great occasion. Last episode was the Halloween episode, and as of recording right now, it's Halloween night, the spookiest night. What a time to be watching some Chucky.
I mean, it is almost as if we timed it deliberately that we would be recording on Halloween, but it is not the case. This is the first time we could record in the entire fucking week. Before we get into looking at episode 3 of Chucky, I do want to talk about something that we discussed on the last episode, and that was how I made the very bold claim that I think we're the only Chucky dedicated podcast. We are not. I have found 2. One of them, I've not been able to get in touch with them. They have got no contact details. But the other one, I got in touch with David Davis from Kids Stuff, a Chucky podcast, and he's a nice fella. So if you want to hear an American's perspective rather than 2 British guys, or if you want to look at it from a writer's perspective, because David is a writer and he gets his writers' friends to guest on his podcast. It's not a regular co-host like CHUCKYVISION. It's David and another writer each time. So it's a very different perspective to what we're bringing. And yeah, we've been chatting and we may collab in future, we may not, but I've listened to all of their episodes and they're great and it's worth having a look. If one Chucky podcast isn't enough and you want more Chucky podcasting than CHUCKYVISION, do have a look at Kids Stuff on, well, I found it on Spotify because that's where I listen to my podcasts. I would assume it's on all good podcast providers.
Great, I'm definitely going to give a listen. The more the merrier.
But who knows? There might even be more Chucky podcasts out there. So if you're listening to us and you have found another Chucky podcast that you think we might be interested in listening to ourselves or talking to and maybe even collaborating with, let us know on the socials at CHUCKYVISION on Twitter. So, you ready to talk about episode 3?
I am, and if just as a whole, I don't know why I'm reacting to this way. I mean, I obviously watch TV, but I guess just because it's Chucky, there was riding all the way up to this, there was such a novelty of Chucky coming to TV. We're so used to him being the movie Chucky, and now this is going to be TV Chucky, and how different that's going to be. And the first episode felt like the first act to a movie. It felt like a movie. And then the second episode, it was, I don't know, like a sequel. But this feels, it's only really just setting in for me like, yeah, this is TV. This is, characters and storylines and I don't know. It's a weird feeling. Did you get this feeling at all that we were settling in for an actual TV show?
I think I was more comfortable with it as a telly show than you, by the looks of things. I like episodic stuff. I like 45-minute shows with X number of episodes. I've always liked that as a way of consuming medium, probably more than I enjoy films, if I'm being honest with you. So I don't think I've had a similar experience to you, I'm afraid.
I think it's just when it comes to like the character of like specifically we've been talking about Lexi and how funny it is, how long it's been taking Chucky to get around to killing Lexi. And the first two episodes, or the first episode especially, it felt like the first act of a movie. Like there was a real good pace going. And I'm definitely not saying there's pacing issues. I'm saying I was in the mood, in the vibe for like a movie pacing. And to me now it's only just really setting in like this is a TV pacing. You know, there are storylines playing out. Like I don't know. I mean, I knew how many. I mean, we discussed how many episodes there were going to be, but I knew there were going to be episodes, and I didn't expect everyone to die after like 3 episodes. But like, it's really just setting into me like, oh, we're going to be with some of these characters for a long time.
Yeah, I think I like Chucky as a telly show. I think it's always a risk. Yes, the Scream TV show was a lot of fun. Yes, Ash versus the Evil Dead really did work as a concept and as an episodic TV series. But I think whenever you do something like this, for every Ash versus the Evil Dead, there's a Dusk Till Dawn.
I never did give that a try.
Oh, it was cack.
See, Ash versus Evil Dead is an interesting one because I think there's a difference between 22-minute episodes and 43-minute episodes or 45-minute episodes. Like Ash vs. Evil Dead, that was constant. That was so fast-paced all the time. And again, this isn't slow-paced, but like I don't know if you're just going from if you've just seen a Chucky movie, like even 1 or 2 of them, and you're like, oh, Chucky TV show, then I don't know. It's a weird jump to be like, oh, actually, because it's a slasher property.
It is.
So I think for most slasher movies, you don't get too invested in the characters. And so it's interesting to be spending this much time with these characters. But I will say, as a compliment, we'll get into this episode. There's some very good character moments. I'm enjoying a lot of these characters.
I think that you have hit something on the head there. And in the first episode on the TV series that we talked about, if you remember, I talked about how I felt a little bit like the first episode set up all the characters that were going to be fodder. But I think I was wrong because you're right. The establishment and the rich character development that we're seeing does make it feel a little bit more like I was wrong about them being fodder. It's not your average slasher where you just have a list of characters that are going to die and you're not going to care so much about them. I think we are going to end up being really quite upset when the inevitable happens to certain characters.
Yeah, I feel like so many of these shows are, I mean, even if this is a slasher property, so I feel like we're expecting a lot of these characters to be dead by the end of season 1. Like we expect the carnage to ramp up, but like that's an interesting thought. Like Jake is going to survive past season 1, but what about Junior? What about Devon? Some of these characters looking into the future could run for seasons. They could become huge characters.
I'm not sure Jake is, I think Jake's going to let down Chucky and he's going to lose his temper. I think we could see a curveball where Jake is one of the victims.
That would definitely be shocking.
I think it's the kind of thing that a TV series would do and get away with, and you're right, would be shocking. Whereas I don't feel like slashers tend to do that, with the exception of Scream. I've just absolutely talked bullshit. But still, I do think that we might see Jake get killed by Chucky. I do.
Yeah, I think that's a great comeback to what I was saying, and I agree with that. Like, maybe I feel like we're settling into something long term, but it's still early days. End of season 1, everyone could be dead. Who knows? And that is exciting.
Yeah, I think we'll probably get some legacy characters killed as well.
and that would be crazy as well. I mean, let's get into it. Let's get into this episode because there are some kills and there's some interesting scenes here.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that's immediately stuck out to me was everybody's a killer if you push them far enough. And I was like, oh, this show is dark. It seems like every episode there's something that just really kind of like slaps me around the face and makes me go, oof. Oh, every episode there's a line. I think last week it was the social commentary about the rich and how the maid practically raised their kid and how that was a slap around the face, a real kind of like heavy hitting line. And maybe I'm looking for it now, but I have a feeling there's going to be one of these every week for me now.
This opening scene, yeah, I am so glad that they continued this from the last episode and that they gave it the time it deserved because, like, as fun as the last episode's cliffhanger was, that, you know, he's picking up the knife and his face is in the reflection and Chucky's is, oh my, he's going to be a killer. Like, that's like a fun cliffhanger, but I'm glad that Mancini also took the time to really explore the realism of this. That, you know, he's a young person, he's a young kid weighing up the options on whether he can kill someone. And that is very horrific. That's like,
yeah.
I mean, have they said it in the show? It's one thing for a killer doll, and that's all fun. You know, these are all teenagers in high school. You know, like a school shooter, like that's a much more real horror. And this is like carefully, it's, you know, it's not veering into distaste, but it is responsibly exploring the fact that kids can be extremely stressed. Someone like Jake is a person that exists in reality, that they can be pushed, like Chucky says, pushed into being a killer. And so I feel like scenes, you know, the show is respectfully exploring like how someone can be pushed in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and I think later on in the episode, Zachary Arthur's acting really, really matters. I feel the way he covers the conflicted nature of how he's dealing with what's going on in his head and how he's feeling about whether or not he can and or wants to kill. If he was a bad actor, that would have sucked ass. But he doesn't, and it also emphasizes the ineptitude of a new killer as well. And his acting again is great. He really does make this episode, even though it's quite a Jake light episode, the Jake that we see, the acting is so fucking good that it really does complement what we see.
Yeah, you make a really good point about Zachary's acting in this. And his acting really reminded me of Hannibal, the TV show. And a few elements of this episode reminded me of Hannibal because Don Mancini did work on that show. And it really reminds me of the main character in that, Will Graham, and how he really shows in his acting this palpable weight on his character. You see that in Jake in this, that the decision to kill isn't just as clean cut as does he want to kill or does he not. All these scenes with Chucky, and even the scenes without Chucky, it all comes back to that allegory or illusion. Well, not even illusion, it happened. You know, Chucky did punch him behind closed doors. And so there's this horrible weight that you can see on his face, you can see in his performance of, if he doesn't kill, is Chucky going to do something bad to him? And like, that's a really horrible, like a really horrible evolution and twisting of their relationship and that you see in this episode.
Yeah, I think you're right. Do you know, I really want to be able to come at this and at least have some criticism, but I'm really struggling to do anything other than gush about this program. But I want to talk about the titles because we haven't talked about the titles yet. The first 3 episodes have all had very, very distinctive titles. The first episode had the dolls that then formed the name Chucky. The second episode had the knives that then formed the name Chucky. And the third episode had flaming sharp stuff that then formed the name Chucky. And I love that the titles are different every time. It's clearly something that's done with love, and they've really thought about this. And it's just that tiny little bit of extra effort that makes me go, yes.
Absolutely, yeah. It's. I was going to say labor of love. Yeah, it's a great demonstration, and especially since it's on the Sci-Fi Channel, and I feel the Sci-Fi Channel has a lot of great TV. There are a lot of really good TV like genre shows on Sci-Fi, but I feel because Chucky is a movie series primarily. I think when people think sci-fi originals or sci-fi movies, they think cheap, and I think just simple things like these customized episode titles, they really show that everybody on board this show is giving it 100%.
I think so. And another touch that has happened in the episodes that we didn't mention yet is how the footage goes from the modern widescreen to a square when we're in the past with Chucky's background. And again, it's another little touch. They kind of fade the footage a little and make it look older, but they also shrink the screen to a square, like it was when it was recorded in the time that they are depicting. And that's fucking great.
Yeah, like a little handheld Super 8 camera. It's a really neat trick.
And I just think it really adds to the atmosphere as well. I watch a lot of old telly, and I podcast about a lot of old telly. So stuff like Red Dwarf, stuff like the kids shows from my childhood. I podcast about those. And so I'm used to seeing black lines on the side of a lot of the telly that I watch. But it's just nice to see it flip in and out on this as part of the show's identity, part of the show's touches. It's great.
And as we've said, Chucky is one of, aside from like classic Universal monsters, in modern slashers, he's one of the oldest slashers we have. So it's an interesting note that he grew up with little Super 8 cameras, and now there's smartphones and drones and all sorts of modern technology now.
But I think what's important about this kind of flip from widescreen to the more square-shaped old-fashioned is no film would do that. No film would want to do that and have it on a cinema doing that. Whereas television is a little bit more versatile, adaptable, and naughty, I suppose, because it is really naughty. It is really fun and clever. It reminded me of reading a comic book where a dream of one of the characters, that dream is drawn by another artist. When a character wakes up from the dream, it goes back to the original artist. And that's just really cool, experimental, clever stuff that I think as a television show is something that a film would never do.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I swear Hannibal messed around with aspect ratios as well. I remember, I swear, for the opening of season 2 and like the ending of season 2, it was this big climactic battle between characters, Hannibal and the good guys. And I swear they went into like a cinematic aspect ratio because it was this massive fight. And yeah, I mean, I there's a lot of other crazy things in Hannibal, and there's a lot of crazy things happening in this.
I've never seen Hannibal.
Oh, you should definitely give it a go. It's like this. It's, you may have seen some of the Hannibal movies and stuff, but the Hannibal TV show is an entirely different beast. And it really makes use of exactly what you said. That, TV, people expect 40 minutes a week, a structure, procedural, what they've had before, right. Tradition. But these, modern shows, they can do whatever they want. And that's really exciting to see what Chucky does with it. Because that's what I was talking about before, how it feels like we're sort of going into a tradition set. We've got our characters, we've got our settings. We go from Lexi's house, we go Jake's house. We're building a sort of expectation now. But we're going to get into it. It seems very close that Jake is going to start killing some of these characters, and it's really reaching a point at only episode 3 that this show could completely pivot and change and go into crazy directions.
Yeah, and I wasn't expecting Jake to be a killer. I don't know. Maybe that was naive of me, but I was expecting him to get more and more conflicted about how he deals with the fact that he has brought a killer into his town. But I'm all about this. I really like this.
And we'll get to it, but Jake gets really close.
Mm.
It's a whole different kind of tension that we're not really used to with these kind of films and slashers and stuff. It's such an interesting angle that this show is going in.
Yeah, I think I really liked the way Junior responded to Jake and his ineptitude and his failure to stab him. No, you wouldn't assume that someone who came up to you, however weird they were being, was going to murder you. You wouldn't. And he was like, what are you doing? You're being really creepy. And that's exactly how a normal human would respond. You wouldn't assume that someone was going to murder you. You'd be like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And I thought that was really well thought out and really well done. And Junior was right. From what he saw, he was being really creepy. He wasn't being murderous because he was basically fucking inept.
It's very interesting with Junior, because Junior, from the first episode, we all assumed, oh, he's just another, like you said, fodder. He's just another asshole that's going to get killed. But, you know, compared to Lexi, he seems much more aware of other people. Like, the way he goes to Lexi and tells her to apologize and stuff, like, you know, I said before about, you know, real teenagers being in these situations. Like, he seems scared, a little bit scared, that his cousin Jake might do something scary.
Yeah, but I don't think you go from 1 to 100 and assume someone that's being odd is being murderous.
I don't know. I don't know if you were scared about it. I wasn't scared about it growing up in school, but I don't know. Our American, you know, they do shooter drills and stuff all the time in American schools. So American kids these days, they're just, I don't know, a little bit on their tippy toes, expecting this.
Now that's a fascinating reply, because I am very, very British, but you're right. This is an American show about American kids, and their experience is very different to ours because of, well, the fact there's a fuck ton of guns in America.
Yeah, and we see this from the adult characters. You know, Devon's mum is very much starting to investigate Jake, and you know, I think she very much sees there's a possibility that Jake is involved in these. And then we also get Mrs. Fairchild. They call her Mrs. F. I just wrote Mrs. F in my notes, but Mrs. F is on the other spectrum, and she thinks that, you know, Jake is a good kid. You know, these are good kids. They would never do anything bad. And
yeah,
you know, I don't want to call that naive. I want to call that hopeful that these are good kids.
I think it's possibly somewhere in between the two.
But yeah, I mean, in between the two, that's a weird reality that some of these, I guess, American youths and stuff have to live with, that everyone could snap, maybe. It's heady topics that this show is dealing with.
Yes, I think I want to go back a little bit and talk about something that was actually quite lovely. And in a heavy show like this, in a murderous show like this, things that stick out are probably not the gore or the kills or the evil characters. It's the nice characters. And Devon, certainly at the start of this episode, is just so fucking lovely. And I think it makes it obvious that he does have feelings that are more than platonic for Jake. And as someone who has seen so little good depictions of awkward gayness in media, this is great, and it felt like it was real. It resonated with me. And when Jake looked back, oh, I always used to do that to see if another guy liked me. Oh, I used to watch guys as they walked away and hope with all hope that they would look back so I could flash them a smile. And to see that, something that's so personal to me in this show, just made me, it warmed me cockles, Dev. It warmed me cockles.
It did. That scene, struck out to me. Like, that was a really nice moment. And I mean this in all the best ways. I don't mean this in a condescending way at all. It felt like a little fanfic, like, shipping moment to me. And, I read fanfic. I like fanfic. So I mean this in a great way. Like, to you, was the hand on the shoulder, was that a big moment for you? Because that felt like a big move for Devon to do.
Definitely.
And the fanficness of it was like, I don't know if, ordinarily, I think Jake would have been, like, completely aware of that and been like, whoa, this is a move, this is a sign. But then at the same time, in this circumstance, Jake was so preoccupied with Chucky and everything going on with Lexi. To me, it felt like Jake was so distracted by trying to cover his tracks that he wasn't even aware of the hand on the shoulder. He wasn't aware of what Devon was trying to communicate.
That wasn't how I read it. I read it as in being naive and not understanding what Devon was trying to communicate, because he's shy and he's gay and he's fucked up and he's got a lack of self-confidence. I know people who, they're gorgeous and they don't spot when people are flirting with them. And I think it was that. I think it was a depiction of someone who's not confident in their attractiveness to other people, that would never even imagine that someone fancied them unless they looked them in the face and said, I fancy you.
True, yeah, I very much get that, yeah. To me, it felt like there's a lot going on in Jake's life right now. If he had never met Chucky and Devon had put his arm on his shoulder, I feel Jake would have been that whole day thinking about, like, what does that mean? Like, that is a sign. He does like me. Like, he would have been really questioning it all. And I feel like in this circumstance, that doesn't come high in the priorities of what's going on in Jake's life, unfortunately.
I think possibly both, thinking about it.
But that's what I mean about the fanfic. It's like, this could have been the start of their relationship. But of course, indirectly, Chucky's in the way. And it's going to be, I hope it's not going to be heartbreaking how much Chucky does get in the way of these two.
Oh, it's definitely going to be heartbreaking how much Chucky gets in the way of these two.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You don't want to tell a gay creator like Don Mancini. You don't want to say, like, give us something nice, give us something pleasant, because he's also writing drama and he's also writing horror. So
yeah,
bad things have to happen. I think for someone like Don, if Devon did die, you could not call that the burying your gays trope. Because Devon has been built up as a character. All these people have been built up as characters.
I very much agree.
If Don chooses to go the sad way, then I'm sure it'll be satisfying. But it will be heartbreaking.
So, I want to talk about Lexi. I always want to talk about Lexi.
I'm always excited to hear what you have to say about Lexi.
So, her apology went from not great to utterly cunty. She literally apologised because she wanted something from Jake. She didn't apologise because she felt like she was doing it for Junior. She didn't feel like she'd done anything wrong. She used it to try and manipulate Jake so that she could get Chucky. And the way it was written, it was almost like a twist. The whole thing lasted, 30 seconds? But by the end of it, we'd had a twist as part of the whole thing. And I was like, you are such a cunt. You need to die.
My exact notes were, good God, Lexi, this apology scene is going to drive Mark crazy.
Later on, what I will say, there is a level of ambiguity about how much she deserves to have Chucky in her house after what is clearly genuine gratitude for the gift of Chucky for her sister.
It's amazing how Lexi heavy the show is, because it doesn't do the obvious thing. It doesn't go, hang on, what if Lexi was a good person and then kill her off? It's like, she is a bad person. She's just not a bad person to everyone. And it's like, why isn't she a good person to everyone? There's no clear-cut answer to that because she just is who she is. She's a teenage girl. She just happens, she just wants to be a bitch to people. And that's like a tough reality to deal with.
I think it's great that the scene where we expect her to gain some humanity, she gets worse. And the scene where we expect her to just be a right bellend, she actually sees some humanity. And twisting it and putting it on its head like that, that's just fucking great writing.
Again, is compelling the right word? She's an engaging character in a very interesting sense. And again, do we want to jump to the ending or do we want to leave people in suspense of this Lexi talk?
I'm pretty sure that everyone will have watched the episode by this point. You don't listen to a podcast talking about an episode of a telly show if you haven't watched the episode of the telly show. Maybe. So go for it.
I mean, Hannibal has a habit, has a trick of, especially one character in particular, it has a real habit of like burning people alive and like cutting people's tongues out and cutting people's eyeballs out, really, really delivering the hurt on certain characters. And you think, oh my God, that person was set on fire and like thrown out of a window. They're dead. Oh my God. And then the next episode, they are in hospital. And they just managed to survive. And I wonder, we don't see Lexi die in this.
No, we don't. I'm pretty sure she survived. I'm pretty sure she survived.
Because the thing that really confuses me about that, and I was expecting it, is there not a shot in one of the trailers where someone on fire runs out down that corridor?
Oh, shit.
I swear there's a shot of someone on fire running down that corridor while everyone is dancing. And we don't see that. And we don't see any definitive conclusion to Lexi. So, I mean, it doesn't look good for her, but...
No, she's having a bad time. What I do love is the image of Chucky in the fire. Oh, God damn, that was gorgeous. But I also really liked the innovation of using modern technology as a way of Chucky getting away with his shit. Who would have thought that silent disco would be something that a slasher film could use so well?
That is such a great modern inclusion, and I'm amazed. I mean, I don't see every slasher, but I see quite a few modern slashers, and I haven't seen that yet. That is such a great scene and a great just mechanic to involve in a slasher scene. That's so great.
I don't know. I was like, does this work? I think it kind of does. Just about. It's pushing it. But yeah, I really liked it. I really thought as innovative ways of the murderer getting away with shit goes, that was pretty clever.
I mean, God knows how he is going to get away with it. I mean, obviously, Chucky always gets away with it, but there's definitely there's at least one completely stabbed body. Episode 4, there's going to be some fallout, to be sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. We are all over the shop today.
That's what I meant in terms of going straight to the ending. But let's get back into the episode here.
I want to go back and talk about Devon's mum. I've gone right off her. I think there's an element of well-meaningness, like every parent, in what she does and how she treats Devon regards to basically telling him who he can and can't be friends with. But controlling draconic parenting is not the way forward. And I wonder if it's a direct police officer thing that Don's trying to hint at here. Do we think that Don Mancini isn't fond of the police?
I think we're definitely going to see more. I mean, if he has anything to say about the police, this character is probably going to live long enough to get a clear picture of that. Because we said like when the early couple of episodes, like the first death and the second death, she was there investigating and she was mentioning Jake, and she was. You could see in her facial reactions, her eyes. She was piecing together pieces quietly. Again, it's only episode 3, and she's pretty much coming out to not just Devon, but Mrs. F. Like, she's coming out to people saying, like, I'm pretty sure Jake is killing people. And we predicted that she's going to be yet another obstacle between Devon and Jake. And
Yeah.
it really came forward in this episode.
Yeah, I think so. And I also want to go back to talk about Devon as well. Very brief thing that I just wanted to point out because I think it's funny is, yeah, his podcast editing software is clearly more sophisticated than mine. And then the other thing is, what the fuck, Devon? You're lovely. Stop the non-consensual recordings.
Oh, he's trying to be a little detective himself. I'm not. I'm very interested in what he is trying with that recording. I mean, does he not trust Jake? What's he looking for?
It's completely non-consensual, and that's not okay. I would never, ever record someone and then put it on a podcast. That's a complete violation as far as I'm concerned. And I like that...
Well, is he going to put that on his podcast, or is he just listening to it?
That's enough. Whatever he does, that's enough.
Yeah.
He didn't ask Jake if he could record him, which makes it not okay. And then later on, he kind of hangs out with the shitty kids as well, even though he knows how awful they've been to Jake as well. I like that Devon isn't perfect. I like that we're seeing that Devon and Jake aren't good character, 100% good either. And I feel like Junior is kind of meeting Jake and Devon in the middle here, whereas Lexi is staying right at the bottom as a massive bellend.
Yeah, it's such a interesting choice for Devon to record Jake like that, and it's like a police tactic. It's almost like entrapment, trying to get him to say something bad about Lexi. We've been saying how unpredictable the show is. A prediction of where that would be going is if Lexi is dead and Devon doesn't do anything with that recording. I have a feeling if his mum gets that recording, even though Jake backs down on it and says they're friends, he says Lexi's a bitch, and is his mum going to really try and use that as evidence that Jake's suspicious? Oof.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I like that Devon has a secret that he records people when he doesn't tell them. That's a much bigger deal than you might think initially, because if that's found out, that is life-changing, that people will never trust you again.
So many obstacles between Devon and Jake.
It's almost like it's a teen drama, Dev.
I will say that is slightly odd. I mean, Devon is a cool kid, but he definitely seems quieter than the other kids. Seems a little odd that he's just in with the other kids. Do they not make fun of his podcast?
Yeah, you'd think they would pick on Devon as well, but they haven't seemed to when he's been hanging out with them, even though they know he's getting close with Jake.
Yeah, it's sort of odd. I'm expecting at least one scene with someone to him, pick your allegiances. Because I wouldn't say he's a nerd or anything like that, but I wouldn't say he's one of the cool kids. Unless I guess this is Don Mancini trying to say that, podcasts are cool, and because he has a podcast, he's cool.
I mean, you and I are so fucking cool.
Yeah, what am I saying? Why am I doubting that? Let's go with the idea that podcasting makes him cool.
Okay, Dev. I'm going to move on and talk about entitled parents, and I'm actually going to tell a little story because the scene where Lexi's parents got completely called out and completely proved wrong with undeniable evidence, I popped for that. I loved that because I've done exactly what the teacher did as a scout leader. I'm going to tell this story because I'm so fucking smug about it. This kid was bullying another kid via a WhatsApp group. And it was a group set up for the scouts in the group I'm a leader for. And it was nasty, nasty stuff. And I received screenshots about this. So I suspended this boy. And the boy's dad really played hardball. He was like, I want a meeting. I think this is disgraceful. It's done without trial, yada, 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 yada. The boy had already admitted that what he'd done was wrong. The dad was having none of it. So what I did was I printed out every single screenshot that I had, which was undeniable evidence. And I'm pretty sure he was expecting that. What he didn't expect was the bully's dad sat next to me. So yeah, this guy turned up ready to give me a rocket, and I had this bear of a man. It just so happened that he was gigantic. And I was like, hello, this is the dad of the boy that your son's been bullying. Don't fuck with me. But this completely reminded me of that. And a situation that I lived in, I found it really stressful that this guy, he was very, very aggressive. It affected my mental health that this man was treating me so badly as a volunteer when it was his kid that had done wrong. And yeah, he was very, very aggressive. He was very, very rude, and it was unpleasant dealing with him. He fucked with me. So I made sure that he knew not to fuck with me again. I had no problem with his boy. His boy admitted what he'd done, apologized, and asked what to do to help. This guy tried to intimidate me and failed. So yeah, that scene meant a lot to me.
That definitely sounds like the scene in this. I mean, I think not only in that sense of like, I mean, I'm not a parent, I don't understand that, but like, I feel like, if my kid did something bad, I would be open to listening to that. But then, is that a weird protective sense? Like, my kid can do no bad, therefore, like, he must be good, and you must be wrong. Because
I think it's a class entitlement thing, and I just felt like the way it was dealt with and the way they just got shit on with no comeback. It warmed my cockles. Oh, it did. It made me feel great. And it just reminded me of when I kicked ass with a right shithead.
I mean, what really reminded me of the episode, and obviously why you brought it up, was the other parent, the parent of, the victim. And we talked about how interesting it was that Don Mancini spent time and attention on the parents last episode. And this was a really interesting scene because it had that scene that we've seen before in these kind of teen dramas and stuff, like the parents who are like, my child would never be a bully, and then they get proven wrong, which is very satisfying. But we also get a very genuine moment of the dad, Junior's dad. I can't remember his name, Mr. Wheeler. To him, this isn't just about Jake being bullied. That is a girl making fun of his dead brother. Like, this is personal to him as well.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting moment to see that. To actually, like, Don Mancini knows all his characters, and he knew this would affect this character, who does not need to be a character with even dialogue. He does not need to be a main character, but he gave this character a real moment. And it's an interesting moment because it really shows that, Jake moving in with his aunt and uncle, and his aunt seems to be having some affair, and they're these rich potential, I was going to say these rich assholes. They could just be rich assholes. But Don Mancini is giving them moments of humanity and giving them actual personalities and moments like this.
They're not caricatures, and I like that. They are rich knobheads, but they're not written in a twee and completely unsalvageable way that becomes unrealistic, because no one is black or white in this world. And I really think you're right. And like you said about it being this guy's brother, earlier on, it was Junior calling Lexi saying, "That's my fucking uncle, love."
Yeah, yeah. And that's what's going to make these, like, who dies and who lives so interesting, because it's not just Junior, the boyfriend to Lexi. It's not just rich asshole Mr. Wheeler. People are connected. There's real, when someone dies, there's multiple people who feel bad about this. And this town of Hackensack, it's a community. Everyone knows each other. So when someone dies, it affects everyone. And that's what makes Chucky's acts of carnage and chaos all the more powerful.
Yeah, and I also think that Junior is really conflicted about it all because he is in love with Lexi and he can see the good in her, which I think is difficult to do. But even Lexi, there is some good there, and Junior wouldn't fall in love. Junior's not insane. He wouldn't fall in love with someone who is completely unsalvageable. No one would do that. And I think the fact that Junior does clearly care about her does slightly humanize her.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if Lexi lives or Lexi dies, this is clearly going to affect Junior in some way. And we get that as well. With Junior and Lexi, we also get Christ, what's his name? Boy. Third wheel in the triangle. Ethan? Something like that. Do you remember
who?
The third boy, the boy that she's maybe also in a relationship with.
Isn't it Oliver?
That's it. It is Oliver. Yeah, I couldn't remember his name.
Do you want to start that again?
I mean, he's not. I think that stands to prove that he's not really. Out of all the characters, he's not very memorable. But I think it's unsaid, and I can accept it as being unsaid. I like that it's unsaid at the moment. I hope it gets said at some point. But, like, it's not really, like, a tight love triangle, is it? Like, it seems very clear that Junior and Lexi have something much closer than Oliver and Lexi. I mean, Lexi very clearly is just using Oliver for stuff like free booze and stuff. So, I mean, that shows an aspect of Lexi that it's like, oh, she's a two-timer. But no, she seems much more genuine with Junior.
Yeah, I like the characters in this. I think that there's really more opportunity in a telly show to expand the characters than there would be in a film. If you think about this, 3 episodes in, 3 40-minute episodes, if it was a Child's Play film, it'd be over by now.
Yes, that's exactly what I've been feeling, and why it's like, oh, this is going to keep going.
Callback. Talking about callbacks, look at me transitioning like a pro.
Nice.
Caroline reminded me of the original situation of Andy in Child's Play. She's about the same age as Andy was, and she knows that she shouldn't be talking to this doll. She knows it's unusual, and she knows that she's probably not going to be believed. And it's done in a childhood innocence way, in a similar way that Andy was in the films. And I really like that.
Again, sort of like that moment with Mr. Wheeler. It's like, I didn't think Caroline was going to be a character. You know, she showed up at the Halloween party. She said some funny lines with Chucky. I thought that was going to be it. But then we get more of her in this. And it's really refreshing and surprisingly engaging that she is becoming a minor character that, like you said, shows off this callback to older Child's Plays and shows a different connection with Chucky. It's great.
I think the curveball of, we expected from the trailer, the impression we were given was that it would be the relationship between Jake and Chucky, and everything would revolve around that. But by episode 3, Chucky has been given to Caroline, and I wasn't expecting that. And because of this curveball, this goes back to why I think Jake might get killed by Chucky. Because if they're messing with you, and again, it's a bit like Hollywood's trailers that mislead you into thinking what might be in the film. I feel like the trailer might be much more misleading than we initially thought, and that Jake really might fucking die, and that Caroline will become the protagonist.
That is definitely an interesting perspective, and it again, setting up these characters that you don't expect to be characters. Like, is Caroline still going to want Chucky in the next episode? Is Caroline going to say to people that Chucky said he was going to kill Lexi? I mean, she's become suddenly a very interesting chess piece in this whole game.
And again, we're talking now about how it's continuously given a nod to the franchise, and it's done a real justice to it. The fuck it thing with Chucky is just so Chucky, and it's, again, we've said it 100 times on this podcast now. Chucky plans all this shit, and it's really sophisticated and intelligent, and then he runs out of patience. And he does it again, and it's great, and it pops me every time, and I love it.
I mean, there's a number of scenes where in this that Chucky was just going to get on with stuff. There was a very near get on with it scene when he first arrives at the house, and then he, Lexi goes, she leaves Caroline and she starts walking through the house, and then there's no music. Like, Chucky just springs onto the screen, and he's just running to catch up with her, and it's oh, he's just going to kill her in the middle of the day, just like that. And then she opens the door and people start coming in, and it's that was as close as Jake almost killed Junior. Deaths can just happen like that.
Yeah, exactly that.
But then the moment you were talking about was the with Oliver.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, that was a really funny kill. And I mean, as far as kills go, he didn't push him onto a washing machine of knives. He just stabbed him. But the context that no one can hear him because everyone's dancing with the headphones on.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Brilliant, and also just brutal as well.
Definitely.
He wasn't the most developed character, but it's a brutal death for anyone, especially he's quite young. So
yeah,
it doesn't shy away from the brutality.
Yeah, and I think by killing someone who is young, it establishes that the younger characters can and will be killed. Sure, he's a minor character in comparison to someone like Jake or Devon or Lexi or Junior, but he is still their contemporary, whereas it's only been adults that have been killed up until this point.
Well, I mean, there's that one moment, and you don't, maybe because you don't see it, it doesn't quite have the same impact, but they say in Cult of Chucky, Chucky did possess that young girl, and then off screen, as Chucky, she died. So Chucky, he's a cold bastard. He could be prepping Caroline as a replacement for Jake. He could kill Jake off, and if Caroline gets in the way, he could kill Caroline. I mean, we see in these flashbacks, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about them now or not, but these flashbacks of Chucky's childhood, they also show that he's a cold bastard.
So I wasn't sure what I wanted from Chucky's past. Do I really want the cliche of him being traumatized, which makes him the killer? Or do I just want him to be the lovable, murderous, psychotic, crazy man that I've grown fond of? And I still genuinely don't know. But murdering his mum was not something I expected, particularly after we'd seen what was potentially the trauma that made him flip, and his genuine fear and hiding in the closet with his mum. That twist got me. It definitely got me.
Like you said, it could have been obvious, it could have been stereotypical, whatever, an expected trope or something. And we get those scenes early on of him at the birthday party, cutting the cake and hitting the what do you call it? The donkey. Yeah. The donkey filled with candy. Why can't I remember what it's called?
Do you mean a piñata?
Yes, him hitting the piñata. You have that voiceover of modern day Chucky talking about choosing a victim, and it seemed at that time that young Charles wanted to kill people. Like he was at least he wanted to be violent towards people, and so that killing of his mother under the dress of the other killer in his house was such an interesting moment for his character because like it was like he was thinking, if I out crazy the crazy, then they'll back away. Like if I do the job for him, then he won't kill me. It was such a just unexpected and original like scene, like a sequence for that to happen.
And it was nasty as fuck.
Because it works. I mean, it's like who that guy was. I mean, who was he? I mean, I don't think we'll ever know because I think that's the point of it, that people like Chucky, he might be iconic because of the doll and he might be, he might have funny one-liners and stuff, but he's not really any different from that guy. They just kill people because they enjoy it. Simple as.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? And I do feel like this show always manages to shock me. I can't predict what's going on. So all these predictions I've made today, like Jake's gonna die, I'm inevitably fucking wrong because I've got nothing right so far.
Well, I mean, speaking of like topsy-turvy, who knows what's going to happen, did you laugh at that dialogue when Caroline and Chucky are watching the news and Lexi says, I thought you were watching Westworld?
Brilliant.
Why is Caroline watching Westworld? But I don't know, is that the loosest foreshadowing that this show is going to get bonkers? Like, expect the unexpected.
Yeah, I didn't spot it, but I hadn't clocked what Westworld was. Now you've emphasised it. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, Westworld's really inappropriate for a kid, isn't it?
Well, I mean, not inappropriate. Well, I mean, inappropriate, I guess, for the violence, but just inappropriate for how complicated that show gets. And like how insane all the dialogue and stuff gets. And I guess, I don't know, that's like I said, is it foreshadowing for how obviously it's going to get crazy because we haven't even got to all the legacy characters yet. Once Tiffany comes into it, then it's going to get crazy.
Well, technically we have seen Tiffany very, very, very briefly.
But I mean, Tiffany and like her dolls and Chucky in a human body, we haven't even got to that. We're talking about this in the sense of like a season finale. Like, is Jake going to kill someone by the end of season 1? We haven't got to all the other stuff that is going to come into season 1.
And you know what? I'm glad. I really like the fact that they didn't splooge legacy characters immediately. I really do like that. We got the very brief Andy phone call. We also got Tiffany walk away from dropping the doll on the table in the yard sale. But other than that, which are tiny, tiny moments and little nods that you could kind of blink and miss, I really like that they've not explored all of the Chuckies. We know that they're out there.
Yeah.
But this story is so interesting. We don't need them yet.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to the start of what we were talking about, like Westworld, like Ash vs. Evil Dead, like modern TV, it's so different to what people experienced with TV back in the day, like traditional TV. I made silly predictions about like Andy being locked away for this season and like what a good season finale that would be of him getting out and stuff. This is really a show that episode by episode anything could happen. I mean, Jake, what we confirmed on now? 8 episodes?
It's pretty sure it's 8. Yeah,
8 episodes.
I think that's it.
But like, anyone would predict like, oh, what if Jake died and that's the season finale? Jake could die in episode 7, and then episode 8 just deals with the fact that he's dead. Like, anything could happen.
Yeah, I genuinely think it could be earlier than that.
And that's what's interesting, because it has set up what you've said. It has set up fodder, but then it's built this fodder up into a cast of really good characters, and now we have no idea who's going to die and when.
Yep, I think so.
You watched it the same way I did. What did Chucky say to get bleeped? because I've seen that on Twitter, and people have watched this through different ways. They've watched this through like TV, they've watched this through like streaming services, and it seems to be bleeped on everything.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether or not it was going to be that the version we watched was bleeped, but I think it was bleeped across the board. And that's fascinating. It's got to be cunt. Surely it's got to be cunt. Because he said fuck. And there's only cunt that's worse than fuck. Unless there's an American context word that Americans find more offensive than cunt.
I think modern TV, I mean, it depends on where it is, sci-fi, HBO, Netflix. I think some networks, American networks, are fine with cunt, and some still don't like it. I wonder, is it something that, because if it's bleeped across the board, is it something that was meant to be bleeped in the script?
I think it was meant to be bleeped.
Yeah. Don Mancini wrote something so crazy, he knew it was going to be bleeped. Like, it was basically bleeped in the script. And because this is Lexi we're talking about, you've been calling her, all variations of cunt from episode 1.
I have.
That's what everybody else has been saying. Chucky is even on board. He doesn't like Lexi. So the worst thing he can say, like, it can't even be aired. That's how bad it is. That's how we feel about this character. And I think that is perfect.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated. When this is released on streaming services or crazy, maybe even DVD, will that be unbleeped or will it continue to be bleeped?
Everybody so far has said it's been bleeped. And I mean, you agree with me. I think it is a joke. I think even on DVD, it'll be bleeped.
Yeah, I think it's a little nod to the crazy, crazy, funny extremes of Bride and Seed of Chucky. I think it's a cute little legacy nod that I can only approve of.
It's like we've been saying. It's Mancini taking advantage of the TV medium.
I think so.
This show is so crazy, it's getting censored. That's how crazy it is.
And people will spot that, and I like that.
And as we've been saying, we're only on episode 3. So it's only going to get crazier from here on out.
Yeah, it is. Well, Dev, as always, it has been so much fun chatting about an episode of Chucky. Tell people where they can find things that you want to plug on the internet.
Right. People can find me on Twitter at @AbsoluteTravisT. I'm on there. They've got one of those link trees, you can see where I'm at. I'm going to be trying to start up other podcasts and stuff, hopefully on the We Made This network. I'm going to be starting up my Twitch this November, and I want to do I want to try and write very dumb movies each month. This month, I'm aiming to write Austin Powers 4 because...
What?
Because Bond is over. No Time to Die. It's the end of Daniel Craig. And where can they go except camp? I mean, it's got to be campier. They can't go more serious. So, like, they've written themselves into a genre hole. The campness of old Bond and the campness of old Bond has to come back. And who better than to bring that back than Austin Powers? I think Mike Myers has one more in him, and I'm going to write it.
Okay, good for you. I'll be honest. I enjoy your company, but I probably might. I don't know. I don't know. Now I've said it, I'm actually fucking intrigued by that. It's so ludicrous. I'm actually intrigued. Shit a brick, Dev.
Well, what have you been working on? What are you working on currently, Mark?
Well, I was actually going to think I might plug some of my old shit because I keep plugging stuff that I'm currently doing. But if you are interested in looking at horror films like I have done in the past, there is Super Tap Film Club, a podcast about B-movies that I was a regular host on. Maybe 60% of those. Check that out. I also recently uploaded 4 episodes of a podcast that I haven't continued but would be interested in doing so in future, about Polari, the cant language of gay people from the 20s. That's called Aunt Nell. Have a look at both of those if you're interested in something kind of LGBT friendly with Aunt Nell, or something horror friendly with Super Tat Film Club, because, we're LGBT friendly and horror friendly on this podcast, so I thought they'd be relevant.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard of Polari. I will definitely... Wait, did you just say it was uploaded, or is it ready to listen to?
Yep, 4 episodes. We only recorded 4, but we are potentially looking at maybe recording more. We look at a different Polari word every week for 4 weeks, and they're all cheeky little 10-minute episodes.
Oh, interesting. I'm definitely going to give that a listen.
Well, you can tell everybody what you thought next week then, Dev.
Fantastic.
And if you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at MarkAdamsHC. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Chucky Vision. We'll be back next week. Hopefully we'll post the episode up a little bit earlier as well, depending on our schedules. No promises. We'll be looking at episode 4, funnily enough. And until then, wanna play?
Chucky Vision is a podcast brought to you by the We Made This Network. Follow us on Twitter at CHUCKYVISION. Follow the network on Twitter at WMT_network. Our website is WeMadeThisNetwork.com. The logo was designed by Dev, and the theme tune composed by Dark Fantasy Studios. Wanna play?
Hello everyone, this is Tony, Network Chief of We Made This. As you know, our podcast network brings together a brilliant assortment of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you just listened to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling.
Elsewhere on We Made This.
Shipwrecked and Comatose, a Red Dwarf podcast.
So you know how you were both talking about the attractive women and how you spotted a particular one that you liked, etc., etc. Would you like to know what I put in my notes?
Go on then.
Yeah.
Love the Cuban heels.
They're very nice heels, and the fact he mentioned in the behind the scenes later on there, was it a size too small?
Yes.
Yeah. Totally worth it for Cuban heels. For me, I'm 6'1", which is ever so slightly above average. If I get a pair of Cubans, I'm 6'3", and I look like a god. Yeah. I love Cuban heels.
Pick a disc.
The steps formula at that time was play things. If there's another verse, the fail get it. If they want a little bridge or something like that, they might give it to H or Lisa possibly. But all the hook and everything else would have been played.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I noticed as well, I think Lisa has a lot more kind of solo stuff or solo verses in this album, I think, from what I remember. As well. So the balance is slowly getting more into things. I mean, but it's something that usually happens in all kind of girl/boy groups.
Frame to frame.
My first trip to the cinema to see a Bond film was Die Another Day.
The first one I saw in the cinema was The World Is Not Enough. I tried to get into Tomorrow Never Dies. I was just too young, and we got rumbled in the queue, and I was absolutely devastated. She went, "Oh, are you 12 years old?" There was a woman in the queue. I thought, I can't remember if it was the woman behind the box office or not. She basically did like a kind of MI6 job on me and scammed me. And thought, you're not getting in.
It doesn't sound like it took a lot of interrogation. There was no one exactly, holding a rope with knots in it to you.
Exactly. We know how long I'd last in the field.
Are you 12 years old? No. Yes, I am. It's like the stoning in Life of Brian.
He said, "I'm sorry, I thought we'd started."
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.